Hey, everybody. Good morning. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Whatever you're celebrating, or if you're not celebrating anything at all. Either way, hope you all are doing well. And you have some fun and safe New Year's plans. My name is Adam Bratz. I'm with the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to Office Hours Live. Our guest, Rashidah Butler-Jackson, is, I think, having some technical difficulties on her end. So if she's able to hop on here today, that's cool. Otherwise, we do this every week, and we can just have her on some other time. No big deal. But we are going to press forward with our topic for the day, talking about veterans serving nonprofit organizations, which is a hot topic. There are a lot of veterans serving nonprofit organizations out there. Before I get started to talk about veterans serving nonprofit organizations, and Rashidah, when she hops on, if she's able to hop on still yet today, is going to talk about, must know information if you are desirous of starting or launching a veteran serving nonprofit organization. She's a nonprofit guru and expert and absolute pro that really knows her stuff and can give you the rundown on some things that a lot of people don't consider. Some people have the best of intentions and happy thoughts and happy feelings when they want to form a nonprofit, but often they're not targeted with their approach, and they don't realize it. But if they don't actually execute the right way, they can do damage to their movement overarchingly. And that's something we'll get into in a minute. Before I get started, whether you're watching on Facebook or brand new Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce live on LinkedIn, which is super cool, or YouTube or Twitch, if you're one of the cool kids that's on Twitch, appreciate you joining us. Throw some comments if you have any questions. This is an open forum. I understand a lot of people are hanging out with their families or just chilling out or whatever. If you just want to have a casual conversation, if you want to talk about how good the Packers are doing, or how we're going to win the Super Bowl this year or whatever, that's fine. Open forum conversation. But I'm just going to keep moving forward with my train of thought on veteran serving nonprofit organizations. And again, if you have any thoughts, any insights to add, or any questions that you may have, feel free to just throw them out there in the comment section, and I will address them. Hopefully I won't get distracted by them too aggressively as they pop up. I'm trying to get better at just like seeing the question, finishing my thought, and then addressing the question, but it's still something that I'm working on. Often I'll get the question from whatever stream, and then immediately I just like squirrel. I get derailed and off I go. But I'll do my best. I'm getting better. I'm learning. We're new to streaming. Streaming media is absolutely the future. Experts predict that over 80% of all content on the internet that is consumed by internet goers will be video format, which is insanity. And a large chunk of that is going to be live streaming. So here we are, not to be left in the dust. Like I said, you can follow us over on Facebook, Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce. You can follow us over on LinkedIn. We're broadcasting live there now as well. YouTube, WI Veterans Chamber. I'll put a link in the comments here in a minute so you guys can follow us across the board. And also Twitch, if you're a cool kid that's on Twitch. Saul Newton, our executive director, and I were talking about how fun it would be to take military-based video games or do a watch party for like military movies and actually just like critique the realism and the value of them. I think that would be pretty funny. So if you have ideas for things that you'd like to see us address or tackle or anything of the sort, please, by all means, throw it out there. And again, use the comment section and throw out your questions for today. So veteran serving nonprofit organizations. Did you know, we'll start with a fun fact. Did you know that currently there are over 45,000 nonprofit organizations that consider themselves to be veteran serving in the United States today? 45,000. That is a ton. That is a ridiculous amount. And if we were to do the math, I'm going to look up how many counties in the U.S. All right, so there's 3,143 counties. So if I go 45,000 veteran serving nonprofit organizations divided by 3,100 counties, that means each county in the United States has, if they were equally distributed, 14 and a half veteran serving nonprofit organizations at their disposal. Try to wrap your brain around that. Every county, can you imagine your county having 14 veteran serving nonprofit organizations? Now, if that's the case, and obviously this is going to be distributed unequally based on population density, but you would think that any county that has 14, 15, 10 veteran serving nonprofits organizations would not have things like veteran hunger, veteran homelessness, veteran unemployment, veteran underemployment, any sort of issues, poor deployment support for family members that are behind, that are left behind while their family members are deployed. I mean, if we had 15 active, competent veteran serving nonprofit organizations in each county in the U.S., we'd be fine. So clearly that's not the case. Clearly the veteran community still has a lot of issues. So here we are with 45,000 veteran serving nonprofit organizations in the United States, and yet we are still tackling a lot of issues in the veteran community. And why is that? My theory is that it's a lack of targeting. And by that, I mean, a lot of people with the best of intentions will form a nonprofit organization, a veteran serving nonprofit organization, hoping to help the troops without being niched down enough to make an impact. So whether demographically bound, whether locationally bound, niched down in any way, shape, or form, targeted. If they're too broad, they're unable to sustain. I've seen a lot of people form an organization saying, I want to help the troops. Where do you want to help the troops? Everywhere. How do I want to help? How do you want to help the troops? I just want to help. And they end up getting some initial funding, maybe some grant money, maybe some donations from people that sense that person's passion. They get a fancy logo, they get a website, they start raising money. And then what? With the lack of targeting, they end up fizzling out. And a lot of those people realize that it is really, really hard to launch and maintain a nonprofit organization. It's not easy. So many people say like, well, I really wish that I could just form a nonprofit. Then I wouldn't have to worry about revenue. Give me a break. Nonprofits have to worry about revenue. Obviously, they have to worry about payroll and maybe not taxes, but I mean, there are a lot of things. There are some things that make a nonprofit organization more convenient, but there are more things that are a pain in the butt about nonprofit organizations. Hey, and I'm super excited. Here comes my good friend, Rashidah.
Hey.
How's it going?
I am so sorry. I had a situation with my little one, so I wasn't able to
It's
be on
okay.
time. I apologize.
No, you're fine. I was just telling everybody, like obviously there was probably something up, and if it didn't work out, we just do it next time. But whatever. You're here. I was
Yes,
I
I
was
am here.
excellent. I was just ranting about how a lot of people with the best of intentions will form nonprofit organizations, and in particular, the veteran serving nonprofit organizations, with a lack of targeting, too broad of an audience, too broad of a demographic, too broad of a location, and realize, one, that nonprofits are hard. Two, there are a lot of challenges that they may not expect. And three, if they're not niched down enough, they're going to fizzle and end up doing damage overarchingly. And we see this with the over 45,000 veterans serving nonprofit organizations in the United States. They end up taking funding and resources away from the niche down and targeted nonprofits. So I just finished ranting about this, and you hopped in at the exact right time. Everybody, I'm so excited to have Rashidah here. She is a nonprofit pro. She's a guru, and she has a series of resources. She coaches people on how to form nonprofits. Like, here are the things that you need to know. So if you want to form a nonprofit, or if you want to form a veteran serving nonprofit, she's going to tell you everything that you need to know before you launch, because there are a lot of things that people don't consider. But I'm going to zip it for now. Rashidah, how are you?
I am good. I'm so happy to see you, Adam. Like
Yeah, you
see
too. It's been a
you
long time.
on video. It has been so long.
Yeah, it's been literally years.
Yeah,
My goodness.
a couple years.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be spending some time with you today. I'm
Yeah, you as
excited.
well. It's good
Yeah.
to see your face. It's good to hear your voice. You've been doing some really amazing things. I think I'm your well. I can't claim your biggest fan because you have a lot of fans, but I'm a huge fan of yours. On LinkedIn, you're doing some great work, and you're bringing some real value to people in the nonprofit community. So for those of you, whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch, find Rashidah on LinkedIn. Find RBJ Community Consulting while she's chatting with you about nonprofit stuff. I'm going to be throwing some links in the comments. And if you have questions for her, please, she is an incredible resource. Throw them out in the comment section and I'll go ahead and moderate. But yeah, take it away.
Yeah. So, Rashidah Butler-Jackson here. Apologies again for my tardiness, everyone. I'm super excited to be here, and just chat with you all a little bit about this topic because nonprofits is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And really, I want to get right to it because Adam and I have had this conversation a couple of times personally about how nonprofits are just not for everyone. And I like to start off the conversation by saying that not to discourage you, not to shut down your dreams and your visions about wanting to help people and wanting to give back, but it's almost to save you because we have so many nonprofits that get their nonprofit status and do some really solid work in a couple months, and then they're stuck and they end up shutting down and the momentum is gone. They're fighting for the same funding sources, they're fighting for the same clients or the same, customers that they want to serve, and it's just not worth it. All the work, like Adam said, it is such hard work and it costs a lot of money to start your own nonprofit. And I just don't want to see you waste your time and your money to be stuck in something that's not going to be long term and fulfilling. So the reality is, when people come to me and they say, Adam, I want to start my own nonprofit, my first question to them is, why? Right? And that seems
Yeah,
like such a simple question. It seems like such a simple question, but oftentimes people say, because I want to help, because there's this problem that I'm seeing or this problem that I'm experiencing, and I want to do something about it. And then my question becomes, how many other people in the world acknowledge that that's a problem? And how many other people in the world are doing something about that? Because oftentimes we can be a lot more useful tacking on and attaching ourselves to organizations that do similar work or organizations that are well established, that are making impact, than trying to branch off and do our own thing, right? Like operating
absolutely.
in silos is not the best way to tackle some of these problems that a lot of us are trying to address: homelessness, food security, right? Talking about segregation issues in our city, employment issues, housing issues, right? Like these are things that we all want to tackle and deal with. Some of us, they're near and dear to our hearts for different reasons, but branching off and doing your own thing is not always, the most effective thing that you can do to address these problems, right?
Right.
What do you think about that,
Absolutely.
Adam? Am
Oh
I on the
man,
right
you're
track with
you're
that?
you're hitting the nail on the head. One thing I took on my calculator earlier before you hopped on is I was doing a little bit of math. I mentioned there were 45,000 veteran serving or nonprofits that claim to be veteran serving organizations in the United States, which equates to about 14 and a half veteran serving nonprofits per county in the US. And obviously it's spread out based on population density, but I think you would think any county with 14 veteran serving nonprofit organizations wouldn't have veteran homelessness, veteran hunger,
Yeah,
veteran
yeah,
unemployment, and yet here we are. So I think the issues that you bring up and the way that you help people um, understand if what they're doing is the right thing, or if they can hop onto another one. It's super important work. It's very relevant to our audience as a chamber for sure.
yeah. And I love that. I think doing the math and giving people those numbers, because sometimes people are really visual and like literal. So hearing those numbers, I mean, there are 1.5 million registered nonprofits in the United States. And
Wow.
So you're just talking about the veteran community, but now we have to talk about how many of those are youth serving, how many of those are social service, how many of those are
Mhm,
housing, how many and it gets to be really redundant in a way that, like I said, is really ineffective. Now when we
mhm,
talk about work that's being done in the veteran community, which I am not by far an expert on that, right? Like I'm
mhm.
connected to you and other people that I've met through you, but I imagine that, like you said, if we have that many organizations that are registered nonprofits that are doing this work, we should not be seeing some of the staggering data that we're seeing around issues that vets are dealing with, right?
100%. Yep, absolutely. And it's a lack of targeting. It's a lack of
It's a
targeting.
lack of targeting, Adam. It's a lack of targeting. Are we talking to individuals? And I tell people this all the time. You want to do a youth serving nonprofit. When was the last time you sat in a room full of young people and actually asked them what they want and what they need? Oh,
Yep,
well, I haven't really done that. I know kids need this but how do you know that, right?
right.
How do we know what people actually need? Are we including them in our conversations? Do we have advisory boards that include vets? We look at these nonprofits, and a lot of time the makeup of the boards does
Mhm.
not represent the target demographic that they're trying to serve. Do you
That's so
have
important.
vets on your board or on advisory committees or on your volunteer board, committees that
Mhm.
are actually doing work and feeling represented and feeling heard? And if the answer is no, then you need to totally restructure your nonprofit to make sure that there is representation in that space, right?
Right
That's a
on.
simple
Yeah.
thing that you can do, a very simple thing that you can do, because we cannot tell these people, these individuals who are living these daily things. We
Mhm.
get to go home to the comfort of our lives while there are literally people in the world, particularly vets, that are dealing with these things, and we're not including them in the conversation on how to help them. That feels
Right.
insulting to me. That feels that kind
Yeah.
of feels like you're getting these grants with these nice zeros attached to them, these numerous
Mhm.
zeros attached to them, and they're paying salaries and they're paying operating budgets. And then, a couple thousand here and a couple thousand there actually goes to doing tangible work. And that is not what nonprofits are built to do. That is
Right.
not
Oh,
acceptable.
absolutely.
It's not
Oh, there's so much
acceptable.
fluff in it,
It's a
just
lot of fluff.
overarchingly in the nonprofit community. One thing that I found that was, in the time that I spent away from the nonprofit world, I've been in and out of the nonprofit world since I got out of the military, but
Right.
uh, there are a lot. Like I joined the nonprofit community because I wanted to help. I wanted to do good. I wanted to sleep well at night, knowing that I was doing something to aid other people. But I would be going to these meetings to ask people for funding and support uh, at Northwestern Mutual, for example, who gives $100 million a year to cancer research, and I was trying to scrape through for like a $500 whatever, when 60% of it was going to go to salary and rent and all these other, kind of like not necessarily fluffy things, but things that weren't direct targeted impact. And
Yeah.
here, a for-profit company, they exist to generate revenue and build value for the shareholders. Here they're giving $100 million to childhood cancer research. I dare you to find one nonprofit that's doing that. So
Yep.
you don't have to be in a nonprofit to do good things in the world. That was the thing that really blew my mind once I realized it.
That number is staggering. It's staggering. And
Mhm.
it's like you said, it's staggering because when you think of Northwestern Mutual, the
Mhm.
first thing that comes to mind is not social service or giving back or community, but they do a lot of these places, the Bucks Foundation, the
Yep.
Coles Foundation, the
Mhm.
Northwestern, a lot of these for-profit organizations still find ways to prioritize giving back,
Mhm.
prioritize, community work, prioritize, giving back to those really important organizations that
Mhm.
exist in the community and around our country. And so you're absolutely right. It doesn't, having a nonprofit is not the only way to make impact, right?
Right.
Um, I talk about sustainability with people, Adam, and I talk about, you and I have both seen organizations
Yep.
that rely very little on grant funding. And so that's a big thing too, is when you're starting a nonprofit, if your only revenue source is going to be grants, You need to pause and rethink that, because grants
Right.
come, grants go, grants box you in, and grants say you can only do these three things with this money, and that's it. You can't do anything else. You can't impact anyone else. And then when grant funding is gone, if you don't get renewed or if you don't find another funding source, again, you're back to square one. So it's also thinking about, again, we're thinking about the do's and don'ts of starting a nonprofit here. What are your funding sources going to be? Have you
Mhm.
looked into individual investors? Have you looked into foundations that would be willing to support your work long term or even short term with startup costs? If you're just thinking about grants, you might not be ready to take that leap,
Right.
because because again, I am very over. I started a nonprofit and congratulations. And then a year later, those nonprofits don't exist because they're fighting
Right.
for funding with these larger organizations, such as the Northwestern Mutual or these other
Right.
organizations that get the same type of funding. And a lot of times you can't compete. It's unfortunate, but it's true, you know?
Well, I think that's a good question. And I really did like perfect segue. We didn't rehearse this, but it was a good segue into a question that I really wanted to ask you. So let's say you have zeroed in, you're consulting with somebody, they've zeroed in on a topic. It is niche down, it is targeted, it has an impact, a targeted impact. All the ducks are in a row, and their next step is, how do I get off the ground from a funding standpoint? Grants, finding donors, startup investors, like how do you get them going? Because they have to either write a grant for the first time, find somebody that'll write the grant request for them, wait around for months, or find a donor and actually convince them that your fledgling idea that is just taking off is worthy of them parting with their dollars. How do you get somebody to take that leap?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll be totally honest. I tell my clients all the time, Adam, fundraising and like grants and all of that type of stuff, like that's where I get off the bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I took literally in the state of Wisconsin, it costs you $310 to start a nonprofit. If you get if there's two applications you do through the IRS, and the cheaper
Mm-hmm.
one, along with the articles of incorporation through the state or the articles of
Mm-hmm.
organization, it's $310. So when we think about startup costs, we also have to get people to understand that, like, they think that's it. Oh, I have $310. I want to start a
That's
nonprofit.
easy.
Yeah, it's easy. I can do it. I got
Yeah,
$310. Like, we just got that today from the government. Like, whatever.
done.
But done. I can start two nonprofits with my lovely stimulus check I just got, right?
With
Not getting
stimulus, man,
into
I
politics.
get two nonprofits from
I
one
get two
stimulus check.
nonprofits from one stimulus check. Talk about impact,
There
okay?
you go.
Not gonna go
It's
there.
two
But
nonprofits, double the impact, right?
sorry, this was not rehearsed, people. We swear it couldn't
That's
have come
funny.
at a better time. But I tell people you need a website. Did you know that you should have a website because it helps
Mhm.
with credibility and it helps with validity? Oh, you didn't know that? And I mean, you can get a free website on Wix and like make it
Mhm.
and have something there, but for something that's quality and something that represents you and your brand, it's probably going to cost. Oh, were you just planning on doing services out of your home, or did you actually plan to have a building or an
Yep.
office space, or you got to pay rent for that, right? So the first thing I tell people is you need a budget. You need to
Mhm.
know how much money you're asking for. You can't just go and say to potential funders, "Hey, I'm starting a nonprofit and I just need the money. Whatever you got to give, give." You need to be able to say, if you give me $100, that will help me to provide courses for teens for 2 weeks. You need to be able to put a name and a face to the dollars that you're requesting.
Yep.
Tell stories. Adam, we've talked about this. We know how this goes. When you're asking for money, what is the story that you're telling? What is, and that's hard to do when you're starting up,
Oh yeah,
because you
because you
don't
don't
always
have
have those
those
stories
stories
to
yet.
tell.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So, like you said, a lot of it is doing your market research, figuring out if there are organizations that are similar to me, where did they start? What were their funding? So, and a lot of this is public knowledge. A lot of this is
Mhm.
in annual reports. A lot of this is out there, but you have to stop and do the research, right? And
Yep.
now more than ever with the pandemic, there's tons of money out here. for LLCs and nonprofits to access through the state. We're all in this together, grants and different funding sources for people. But again, like you said, it's really hard to plead that case when you are just getting started. So that is
Yep.
not my skill set, right? Like I try to stay in my lane as much as possible. I can get you there. I can talk to you about, again, having that budget, being able to tie a story to your dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to tell the story of the impact that you hope to make. But what I also tell people, Adam, is, and you know this again, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
keep tapping on you because I know you know these things. Sometimes people buy into you, right? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's so important to make and create a name for yourself. If I say I want to start a veteran serving nonprofit, and the vet community is looking at me like, we don't know you. You've never volunteered at an event. You know
Right.
what I'm like. We
Mm-hmm.
saw
Mm-hmm.
you on Adam's thing one time, and now you think you can start a nonprofit for veterans because.
Right.
So you also have to be established in the field, in the area in the sector that you're trying to like do the work in, and that takes time too. Because when people trust you, even if you are starting out, because who you know, people will say, "Oh yeah, Rashidah, she's always at these events. She's always volunteering her time.
Mm-hmm.
She took the
Mm-hmm.
course. She got their certificate, so on and so forth." And then there's a little credibility there. So there's a couple different ways, but I stay out of the funding world as much as possible. I
I,
really
I
do.
I stay out of the fundraising world too. Unfortunately, I stayed out of the fundraising world when I was a major gifts guy, and it didn't really I was not very I was not very good. I should have been in the fundraising world, but it just didn't work out. Not my strong
Didn't
suit.
work out that way.
But I do know I do know if I can't laugh at myself, who can I laugh at? Um,
Absolutely.
but I do know that storytelling is so important. That's such a great point. But relationship building and trust, there's so much skepticism. And right now, people, companies, I mean, there's a lot of grant funding out there, but that grant funding, especially COVID support grants, are not going to last a year, 2 years
Yeah.
from now. You can't hang your budget on that. And right
Yeah.
now, people and companies, corporations, they are clinging so tight to their dollars right now. The
Mhm.
extraneous things, like memberships to chambers of commerce, nonprofit support, blah, blah, blah. Those are the first things that get cut usually. So
Yeah.
like you have to have trust and a relationship in addition to a compelling story.
Yeah.
Um, because people they're skeptical, and there's a good chance that if somebody is in a position to donate, they've donated and they've been burned before. They've donated
Yeah.
$100 to an organization, 200, 300, 500, $1,000 to an organization, and they never heard from them again. They were not stewarded appropriately.
Yeah.
They were cultivated, they got the money, the stewardship didn't happen, and then 2 years later, they see that it's fizzled out and their website doesn't exist anymore. And they're disenfranchised. That's what these not targeted nonprofits, these broad nonprofits do, is they disenfranchise potential donors from
Yeah.
making targeted impact through targeted nonprofits. So that's a super good point. And relationships are the basis of all of that. So let's say you're consulting with somebody, they have a targeted nonprofit idea, it's niche down, it makes sense, they've secured, they've done the paperwork, they've spent half of their stimulus bill, and then now they're officially a nonprofit. um, and they have a grant funding source, they have a seed donor, and they have started to put some stuff together. They have what they believe to be a compelling story and a bit of a brand established. They've started to network with people, and they have some trust, and they're starting to get off the ground. How do they make that switch, make that transition to scaling at a rate that they can make the switch to doing that full time, to being a real executive director, to going from maybe a casual on the side passion project to, okay, we've scaled to the point where I can do this for a living? How do you get somebody from point A to point B there?
That is a great question, Adam. One of the biggest things that I tell my clients all the time, your board will make or break you. Your board
Mm.
of directors will make or break you. If you do not have the right people at the table who are actually doing what board members should be doing, which is bringing in dollars to your organization through various commitments that they make, which is advocating for your organization in different community spaces and different
Mhm.
professional spaces, so on
Mhm.
and so forth. Your board should be leading different committees and figuring out how to increase volunteer engagement, figuring
Mhm.
out how to increase community awareness. A lot of success of nonprofits falls on the shoulders of your board of directors, but it also falls on you as an executive director to have a vision for yourself. A lot of
Mm.
people want the title of executive director. And I was laughing at one of your LinkedIn posts the other day because you were like, listen, you are not an executive director. You are a founder. Here's the right. So, like
Yeah.
talking
If you
about
don't have a
titles
board, you're
and
not a
if
CEO.
you don't have a board, you're not a CEO. You're not, and I was
Yeah.
cracking up because I'm like, it's so true. We want to throw these things on our LinkedIn profile. We want to throw these things on our business card, but we have
Yeah.
no idea what it takes to be a CEO or to be an exec director. We don't even have a job description for ourselves.
Right.
If you don't take it seriously and say, I'm creating a job description for myself, here's the salary that I desire for myself, here's the responsibilities that I'm willing to take on, you're not going to get there. So it
Right.
takes that accountability from a board of director. It takes a clear vision, strategic planning. A lot of times, Adam, people think that strategic planning is just for well off and established organizations. Absolutely not. If you are a startup organization, one of the first things that you should be doing is hiring out someone or having someone. I really recommend someone outside because you
Yep.
have that objective opinion and someone can really come in and work with your organization. But you should have a strategic plan. What are your yearly goals? What are your 2-year goals or 3-year goals? So, goal setting, having a board that is accountable, a working board, a board that gets outcomes, having a vision for yourself as an executive director. So, a job description, taking on mentorship is a huge thing that I tell my clients. So, do you talk to other executive directors? Do you talk
Mm.
to other CEOs to figure out what they're doing and how they got to where they are? There are lots of mentorship programs that you can join and professional organizations that you can join, like the Chamber of Commerce, like Young Professional or professional organizations, like the
Mhm.
Young Nonprofit Professional Network, right? Like there are all of these networks that you can join. So you have to be able to do the work to establish a vision, but then also connect with people who are going to help to propel you. I can't tell you what success looks like, but what I can tell you is if you're not talking about sustainability with your nonprofit, meaning you're sustaining past that grant, past that funding
Mhm.
source, past that first year, then you're not doing it right. And a big part of nonprofit success is volunteerism. Having people who support your nonprofit and believe in your nonprofit to donate, to come in and teach lessons to kids, if that's what you do, to come
Mm.
in and plan the annual coat drive and the annual food drive and all of that type of stuff. You need man and woman power. The
Right.
other thing I'll say, Adam, because right, this is such a loaded question because there's so many components.
Yeah.
The
There's a lot
other
of
there's so
components.
many things, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say about that is I always just kind of tell people that like you have to be able to take feedback and take critiquing and actually implement.
Yeah.
That is a huge reason why nonprofits fail. That is a huge reason why CEOs and execs are not successful. You're not giving opportunities to receive feedback from
Mm.
your staff, from your board, from the people that you're serving. And if you're not constantly open to receiving feedback or seeking it from people, you're not
Mhm.
ever going to know how to shift, how to put yourself in a direction for success. Like all of that stuff matters, you know? So I could go on and on, right? But like you
Yeah.
need to read books, you need to listen to podcasts about what success looks like and how that works for yourself, and just having a vision. Just really having a vision. You can quit your full time job, start a nonprofit, and quit your full time job and be very successful within a
Mhm.
year. I've seen people do it. I've
Yeah.
seen
Oh yeah.
people quit and make their salary and really have impact within a year or two. It's possible, but you have
Mhm.
to be willing to put in the work, you know? So,
Work
does
and
that answer
research.
your
I
question
mean, you
fully? Yeah,
absolutely.
research.
You hit
Yep,
both things on the
yep.
head. You mentioned podcasts. One of my favorites that I listened to for, gosh, I think a year and a half straight was, I think it's called Nonprofits Are Messy with Joan Gary.
Joan Gary, I love her.
Oh
Yes,
gosh,
love
that's
her.
a good podcast. If you
Hmm.
learn about the real messy world of nonprofits, she's a great
Yeah.
resource.
And Joan
Also,
is real. Joan is
she's real.
real. Okay.
She's real
She
deal.
is very real.
And she has great
Like,
guests and great
yes,
insights, and
yes. Lots of
that's a great podcast.
diversity. Yeah, she's
Mhm.
amazing. Hmm.
And the other point, oh gosh, what was I going to say? You had two really good ones in there that I wanted to piggyback on.
You said research and you said vision. I talked about vision. I talked
Oh,
about
vision, that's it.
mentorship. Yeah.
Um, a mission and a vision statement. So many people, one, don't know the difference between a mission statement and a vision statement,
Yes.
and don't
Yes.
take the time to establish one, whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit business. You need to have a mission statement and a vision statement. Um, and everything that you do needs to either supplement or support that, or be based within that bubble.
Yes.
So could you talk for a minute? And I know we're kind of getting on the end of our time here, but can you talk about mission and vision statements, why they're important, what the difference is, and how you can use that as a foundation for kind of your programming and your thought processes moving forward?
I love this question. It's one of my favorite questions. And I'll start by saying you should also have a mission and a vision statement for yourself professionally. So
There you go. Yeah, I like that.
every year, I know people do
Hmm.
like vision
Hmm.
boards and all of that type of stuff. I do that too. But every year I create a mission and a vision statement for myself professionally. This is what I want to do. This is what it
Hmm.
looks like when I'll get there. So essentially, a mission is here's what I'm setting out to do, right?
Yep.
Here's my mission. Here's my why. Okay. This is the reason that this organization exists. Here's the
Hmm.
things that we want to tackle. Here's the topics. Here's the people. But a mission statement should be really simple. Sometimes I see mission statements that are like 5, 6 sentences long. And I'm like, that's heavy on the statement, okay? Because you are
Right.
stating some things for sure. You want it to be something that, like, if I'm someone off the street, I could easily memorize it, summarize
Hmm.
it, and
Hmm.
share it with someone else when I'm talking to them about your organization. Hey, I just found out about, the Veterans Chamber of Commerce in Wisconsin. Here's what they do. Here's some of the work. Their mission statement is this, right?
Right.
So that is your mission statement. It really simply can tell people, like, what is this place all about? What are they
Hmm.
trying to do? Your vision statement is what it will look like when that thing has been achieved, when that problem has been fixed, when
Yep.
that person has been serviced. That is what it will look like. Two totally different things, right? Sometimes
Totally
people
different.
think sometimes people think a vision statement is a mission statement. The
Hmm.
mission statement tells me the what and the how, right? Like, how
Hmm.
this is what we want to do and this is how we want to do it. The vision statement tells me what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. Okay.
Right.
So your
Right.
vision statement is, our vision is to live in a world where all children, the vision statement is all children are reading at their appropriate reading levels and feel
Hmm.
empowered when it comes to literacy in the classroom, right? Like,
Right.
that is the
Absolutely.
vision. How we're going to do that, my mission statement is our mission is we work with children, K through 12, to do individualized reading programs or reading
Hmm.
plans, confidence building, and literacy component training. Or, I'm just kind of throwing some things out there, but that's
Absolutely.
simply the difference. That's simply the difference, and you need both. Like, I always tell people, you should have both because you want something to work towards. You want to
Absolutely.
wake up every day and say, like you just said, Adam, you said it perfectly. Everything that you do should be attached to, like, if this is not aligned with our vision, why
Hmm.
are we doing this? This is
Right.
not propelling us towards what we said we wanted to do when this was all said and done. So it is your driving force. It is your selling point when you're out in the
Hmm.
community advocating for your work or asking for dollars. It is the motivator for your staff, right? Like, I saw a quote the other day, Adam, and it said, don't get involved with organizations for people. Get involved with organizations for their missions and their visions.
Hmm.
because people will disappoint you. People will leave, people will come and go, people will let you down. But the mission and the vision of an organization should stay consistent. And if you're invested in that, then you will always be motivated to continue to show up every day. And I was like, yep, that's a
I
good
like
one.
that.
That's a
I
good
like that.
one.
And you
Yeah.
know, I think that's a good place to wrap it up there. We usually try to go 30, 45 minutes. We're at 40 minutes here. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one to end on. It's like we planned it that way. That's cool.
Yeah. Perfect.
We would definitely love to have you on again for one of our office hours. I mean, I feel like we could talk for hours about nonprofits and
Yes.
nonprofits being very, very relevant to the veteran military family community. Yeah, we should definitely do this again. I put in the comments, everybody, RBJ Community Consulting. Oh, I said RBJ Consulting. Sorry, it's RBJ Community Consulting. I put a link to it in the comments on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. I don't think it showed up on LinkedIn. Maybe, I don't know. I'm still learning the multi-stream thing. We'll see. If not, I'll go in after the fact and put it in there. But and also where to connect with her on LinkedIn. She's very active on LinkedIn, brings a lot of great value and insights. Rashidah, this was super insightful and very educational, and I appreciate you taking the time. We're in the middle of the holiday season to share your valuable knowledge with everybody. Can't thank you enough.
Adam, anytime you call, I will come running. You are amazing. I love the work that you are doing, and I always want to be attached to the things that you're doing. So thank you for thinking enough of me to have me on. And I hope that someone got something from our time together. And I would love to come back anytime and chat with you. This is great. Keep up the
Right
good
on.
work.
Yeah, you're too kind.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Yes.
But
Thank you.
we appreciate you. Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Again, check out our link tree. The link is kind of scrolling along on the bottom of the screen there. And yeah, everybody have a great rest of your holiday season. Happy New Year. And the next time we'll see you for
Yay.
Office Hours Live will be in 2021.
Yes. Take
All right.
care, everyone. Thanks so
Bye,
much for
everybody.
having me.